Hello and welcome back, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Or it would be, except is it? See, last week we had Johann missing. We assumed, rightfully so, and definitely, appropriately, given that he said he was going to be absent next week, 2 weeks ago, we assumed that he's locked in a trunk somewhere. And now, our suspicions are confirmed, because that's not Johann who wrote this Tinto talk. That was written by Roger. So Johann is stuck in a trunk somewhere, which is probably bad for the development of, the upcoming game, Project Teaser, but we will have to make do with what we have, which is, of course, religion. It is the opiate of the masses who are concerned about the status of Johann in the trunk. Where are our happy Wednesdays? Not this week, because we have this week, hello and welcome once again to our secret Project Caesar Tinto Talks. I will be your host this time, and we will be talking about the mechanics of Catholicism and its associated Catholic Church International Organization. Where's our happy Wednesday? Where's Johann? Both are stuck in a trunk. Okay, so let's get into talking about Catholicism, to ease our pain. Here is an overall overview of the religion itself. The Catholic religion is part of Christianity religion group, makes sense. Maximum literacy for clergy plus 25%. And this is an interesting modifier, and I do think an interesting thing to think about, just generally speaking, is that professions or clergy, when you build a building, it's going to be employed by pops, right? And it's going to be employed by clergy members or this type of thing. And so it's interesting to think about what some of the downstream effects are. Of course, clergy are more likely to drive expensive cars that are loud outside, but also if literacy is a really good modifier, maybe you build less efficient buildings that employ clergy because they'll have so much literacy, right? Or maybe this is a concession you have to make because literacy is so important, or literacy gates certain actions or this type of thing. And so it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see when you make concessions in terms of the economics of the game, when you're making concessions of various kinds in order to concessions in terms of the bottom line in order to help some other mechanic, like in this case, literacy. So, kind of continuing through, maximum tax estate for clergy, maximum tax for clergy estate, minus 100%. And that is a very, very profound modifier there. And so this makes it so that, economically speaking, pushing up the clergy is not going to be that effective because you do not get to access any of the money that is used by them. And so this is a very significant downside. We get the monthly reform desire plus 0.03%, leading to the Reformation, monthly religious influence plus 0.1, the papal ban on empires, yes, monasteries allowed, yes, maximum religious influence, 1,000, cannot declare wars on religious head without casus belli, yes, enables religious influence, it needs major religious reform, the reform desire is 0%, College of Cardinals, some other stuff, and papal states have special status. Now, this minus 100% is interesting because we saw, I think it was last week, that tithes would go, it might have been the week before, that tithes would go to the papal states, nation, or international. I'm not even sure if it's a nation or a country or if it's some other mechanism. I think that they had territory during this time, so it should be a nation. But they would be receiving, I think in theory, all the money that would be otherwise going to you from the clergy estate. And so that's going to be how that kind of shakes out, which is going to be a significant drain on people starting in Europe. But you have, of course, other advantages. But this in itself is already a really big asymmetry. In chess, generally there's an asymmetry. Often one player is stronger on one side of the board and another on the other, and you try and play to your strengths. And so, of course, the minus 100% tax is perhaps a big enough deal that you really try and lean away from the clergy. But maybe they're just so important for developing tech early on in particular that you have to lean into them. But we are aware of 481 countries following the Catholic faith. Of course, this is because there is a fog of war. Rooted in the Nicene Creed, Catholicism, the largest denomination of Christianity, is led by the Pope, who serves as the spiritual successor to St. Peter. The Pope acts as both the head of the church and as a mediator in conflicts among Christian rulers. Its doctrine and traditions have shaped much of the Western world's religious and cultural history. Continuing on, one thing to highlight here, besides all other effects, is that Catholic countries are not able to tax their own clergy. That is certainly something to highlight. At all, by default. Although there may be other things modifying this on top of it. That's kind of an interesting one. So if we have, plus potential tax rate or maximum tax rate of plus 10%, maybe we can tax our clergy 10%, and maybe this decreases the tithes that go to the church. In which case, this is maybe something to play for. However, the clergy won't necessarily swim in money, as that has to be instead be paid to the papacy directly in the form of a tithe. You could see diplomatic incomes, a Catholic Church tithe, and that is looking to be a kind of big number, I think, coming into the Papal States. Another key aspect of Catholicism is that all Catholic countries will belong to the Catholic Church international organization, which is it's really cool to see all the things that they are doing with IOs. I think someone said that, for example, Japan is like a singular nation, but the daimyos are landless countries within an IO or something like this. When we were kind of streaming our run through of a lot of the old dev diaries. So continuing on here, we see the Catholic Church International Organization. There's 7 curia and 16 cardinals. There's 12 military orders here, and there's 76 bishoprics, assuming most of these are going to be in the HRE. It is Holy and Roman. And you can see here there are quite many countries belonging to it. The total list is expandable and scrollable, with some of them having special statuses. For bishopric and military order, these are self-explanatory, but the curia and cardinals need some more information. The decisions concerning the Catholic Church are taken by the curia, which is composed of cardinals. In Project Caesar, or as we like to say, Project Teaser, cardinals are represented by a special building called a cardinal seat, available to be built by Catholic countries higher than the country rank, Catholic countries higher than country rank in any location where they already own a large religious building. It seems like a word was left out here, but country rank kingdom, maybe? Okay, each cardinal, or maybe I can't read, maybe I don't have eyes. Available to be built by Catholic countries higher than country rank in any location. Nope. You think that there's a word missing there. Okay. Each cardinal seat will grant its owner one loud car outside, but also a cardinal, which the country can use to influence the decisions of the curia. More on that later. Countries can have more than one cardinal seat, and thus more than one cardinal, which is why in the panel you see that there's 7 countries that in the curia with a total of 16 cardinals among them. Maybe we could take a look a little bit here. We see that that is going to be France. That's going to be Castile, or I think, is that Venice? And then I honestly don't recognize these 3 flags, and I think this is the Papal States themselves, who are the curia. I assume the Papal States have special status that will always be curia, so I'm guessing that these are the particularly big nations. Maybe this is Aragon? Maybe this is this England? And then I have no idea what that is in terms of the flag, but it does seem to be bigger countries, I suppose, with France and Castile in there. Okay, but taking a look at the cardinal seat in Avignon, we see that it is, current level is 1, maximum level in Avignon is 1. Avignon, of course, is going to be the seat of the Pope, we assume, here. They have glass, some paper, some demands for some various goods, and it provides the following effects. Clergy food consumption plus 20%, they do be eaten, and max literacy plus 2.5%. That seems like a strong modifier, right? And so if it is really easy to get to your cap literacy, then various forms of things that increase the cap are going to be particularly useful. Let's kind of scroll through some more. Another aspect of the Catholic Church I.O. is its doctrines represented by a set of laws. These laws are not something that's easily changed, and it's what defines the core values of Catholicism. But some important events will be able to shape them, like, for example, the Council of Trent, perhaps also the Treaty of Tortillas. More on that in future Tinto Talk. We get another hint as to how many Tinto Talks we have coming up. Here are some of the following law effects. We see papal authority, active policy, ultramontanism, excommunications allowed, Catholic Church, monthly religious influence, monthly devotion, and it allows the following policies of these in a visible church, etc. We see socioeconomic laws, estate laws, religious laws, administrative laws, and we see that this is the Pope's nation here. And we see the purchase of indulgence. Our favorite, we do like to indulge a little bit in some, some greasing of palms. Shout out to making it to heaven. Active policy is the Pum Quascum, and then monthly religious influence plus 0.1, monthly gold 2, monthly religious influence. So you just buy more influence by sending them money. We see them. Interesting. I wonder how much religious influence affects you internally, or if it just affects your ability to interact within in IO here. We have the marriage of priests, active policy in Rito Romano, clergy cannot marry, yes. A monthly progress towards communalism, and then also is not a leader of the Catholic Church, clergy cannot marry, and monthly progress toward communalism, a little bit less in here. We have the persecution of our witchcraft, shout out to Spain. We have active policy Sicat Malefici AGP Petit. Sorry, my Latin's not too good. Monthly progress towards humanist. Why does the persecution of witchcraft lead you towards humanism? Pop join rebels threshold is decreased. Wait, why? I'm so confused. I guess it's the humans versus the witches. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the persecution of... See, humanism is like kind of a philosophy of tolerance, and burning of witches is generally not tolerating them. I don't know what to make of that. Okay, next doctrine. Yeah. Next doctrines, we have the Papal Bulls. These are actions that any Catholic country can choose from, but only those in the Curia can vote on whether or not to pass them or refuse them. Any country can choose to propose? That's interesting, but only the Curia can decide whether or not to pass them. Here are the possible bulls with some examples. We have excommunication. We have some Latin. We have some more Latin. We also have some more Latin. We have Latin here, and then down below that is in fact some Latin, and then below that is going to be, of course, some Latin, and then saving the best for last, we have some Latin. Okay. We see the Ilius qui se pro divini, which is going to be giving antagonism impact, minus 10%. That seems good. In Coina Domini, maritime presence plus 5%. Okay, so I suppose if the church is going to give you, if you're going to get a bunch of positive modifiers from the Papal Bulls, right? Now this starts to texture us giving up all of our gold or ability to tax the clergy in some sense. I wonder if you could just lower the tax. I wonder what their approval rating looks like, just generally speaking, if you don't tax them, because in theory, not taxing someone increases approval, and you will just not be taxing them. Maybe there's a locked tax rate in terms of the state satisfaction, but we do see a little bit of a trade-off sort of situation where if you are going to get a bunch of positive modifiers by virtue of being in the Catholicism IO, then you having to send your estate tax to the papacy is maybe not that big an issue. When voting on a papal bull, the interface changes slightly to show how many cardinals support each option. It goes without saying that all the cardinals that a country has will be assigned to vote for the same option, so the amount of cardinals a country has is effectively its amount of votes. No faithless electors here. Wouldn't that be nice? And so we have these guys where we have 4 cardinals voting yes for the Latin, and then because the Papal Bulls, the Papal Bulls, there's also the action of excommunication available to all countries of the Curia. Interesting. That if approved, will get excommunicated. Will get the excommunicated country some very nasty modifiers to allow for a special casus belli, monthly religious influence minus 0.5, monthly prestige minus 1, tolerance of the true faith minus 5. Now that seems to be really kind of the really bad one, and papal relations minus 200. Yeah, but this minus 5, that is nasty work, given how, I mean, coming from EU4 and thinking of how bad minus 5 is, that seems really significant in terms of inspiring revolutions. And if you, it's also giving a casus belli versus you, the combination of revolution plus getting attacked is probably going to be something that is a pretty nasty 1-2 punch if someone attacks you while you're revving something like this. The Catholic Church also has some extra aspects in the form of saints and holy sites. Saints are characters of a country that have been elevated to sainthood. A country can choose to canonize any of its previous rulers, and they will get benefits depending on the abilities of such a character. Holy sites are special locations to the Catholic faith, giving some extra income to their owner due to the affluence of the faithful in them. Interesting. People come visit, they spend money. Tourism is always nice to have in a country. Yeah. And so we do see some various saints. King David. A lot of kings. A lot of kings are saints here. What's that about? Okay. And it's about paying money, you. We see some holy sites. I'm curious why the number is 2. Is that just the level of the holy site? We see Canterbury, Chartres, Cologne, Santiago de Compostela, Jerusalem giving 5, and the Vatican giving 4. I assume this is the level of the kind of ones outside the Catholic Church per se, and instead in the main religion panel there are some extra religious actions available to certain countries besides those besides the already mentioned options available to canonize a character. We do see here liturgical language is of course literally Catholic. We also see a little bit of an eyeball of the level of tolerance. This is, I think, a little bit higher than EU4 numbers. So maybe -5 is not that bad. We see conversion rates, some holy sites, religious unity, and we see demand apostolic tax, request aid, and Planctium Regium. Of course, the Latin being the bane of our pronunciation existence. Religious influence, 1100, and reform desires, 0%. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think we're going to get to see, we're not going to get to see in this dev diary in particular the Reformation type of stuff, but seeing how this church is operating is a bit interesting. Demand apostolic tax is an action exclusive to the papacy in which they will demand extra payment from those countries with the apostolic tax privilege enabled. That'll be very interesting. This will, the papacy or the papal states will probably be a very interesting country to play, at game start. Well, I guess every country is at game start. But the reason being is that you will have a massive amount of income, and I'm sure pretty sharp asymmetries in terms of leverage. If your capital is in Avignon, then maybe you can't really exert control over Italy that well, and maybe you're not in a position to fight France to get to the coast. So maybe you have a lot of money, but you don't necessarily have a lot of agency, and that'll be something that's interesting to see. We see request aid is an action exclusive to military orders, in which they can petition and support Pope for their infrastructure, military, or coffers. And this is maybe an outlet for the money. We see the Planctium Regium is an action available to kingdoms or empires, the big ones, that gives them some extra crown power at the expense of relations with the papacy. And one last thing to here is that, as you can see, we need to wish you a happy Wednesday, so that's what we're doing. We saved the best for last. Happy Wednesday. Oh, that's not what it says. Instead, we get a loud car, bringing doom. Catholicism also has reform desire. However, in contrast to some of the other titles that are present in this value, here is not a ticking clock for Reformation, but instead something that will come into play in the Council of Trent. As such, you will have to wait a bit for a further explanation of it. Womp womp. And that's all for today. Next week, we will resolve these cliffhangers by taking a further look at what Catholicism has in store after the start of the game, including the situations of the Western Schism, the Reformation, Reformation and the Council of Trent. So maybe we'll also get to see a look at Reformed and Protestant. On the other hand, this week's Tinto Flavor, we will go directly to the head of Catholicism by taking a look at the flavor for the Papal States. I do believe that drops on Thursday, but we're probably going to do the video on Friday. And also remember, this week's Tinto Flavor will be on Thursday. Yeah, there we go. As this week is Good Friday, and the Papal States would be too busy to attend their own Tinto Flavor. Oh, and it's also a holiday. Isn't it a holiday today, though? As in the Happy Wednesday holiday? Shame on you for not wishing a happy Wednesday. But that is the Dev Diary, seeing kind of some of the interesting things for Catholicism. It would be interesting to know just how many bonuses you can kind of squeeze out from being part of the Catholic Church to offset some of these kind of what appears to be malices, kind of going into it, where you are just having to pay the church all your money. Of course, max literacy on its by itself is sufficient. Maybe this really helps you to push advances in the early game, and the kind of exchange you make is you don't get as much income as other places, but you can push advances way, way, way faster, something like this. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. If you didn't, please feel free to, I guess, unsubscribe. The point we wanted to make is, if you're outraged, which you should be, make sure to comment on this Tinto Talk and ask two things. Where is Johan? Why is he in the trunk? And also, where's our Happy Wednesday? There we go. And you should be outraged. You should be upset. Also, if you didn't like the video, a thing you can do is, or if you just hate the video, well, first of all, you probably shouldn't have watched all 21 minutes, and maybe you need better time management skills. But second of all, if you don't like a content creator's thing, you can click back and go to the main page and click the triple dot and say don't recommend stuff from this this person, which is, a reasonable way of approaching that if you don't like a particular creator. But anyways, I think we already said we hope you enjoyed. So other than that, have a happy Wednesday.